G'day, it's Rob here again. Well, here it is, what's left of the bastard flame liquor engine. And yeah, I've had this. This was the Banggood flame liquor with the piston port valve that you would have seen quite a while back. And I've completely rejigged it, and I tried to turn it into a popping valve type flame liquor. I retained the barrel, cast on some aluminium fitting, put a new front on it. I kept the flywheel, made up a new crank wheel. Anyway, cut a long story short, the bloody thing still doesn't go. So then I changed it to, I didn't shoot any footage of it, but I had a side operated, still a flapper valve. Instead of coming up from underneath it, it came along the side, and it slid back and forward, so the valve sort of went in, open and closed like this. And it almost, well, in fact, it did run once briefly, and I never got the damn thing to go again. And the whole problem with the design is that the flapper valve I was using, which is stainless steel filler gauge, it just never quite sealed enough. I mean, this has got fantastic piston seal. If I spin this over and put my finger on the valve, it'll just stop dead, you know. It's got a perfect piston steel, stainless steel in brass. So the problem has always been the valve, you know, getting that bloody valve to seal properly. And then I just had enough. I thought, screw it, I'm not doing any more of this damn thing. 3 goes is enough, including, you know, trying to get the original design going. And I thought, flame liquors just hate me, and I don't really like them much either. So I thought, what can I do with the carcass, you know, what's left? And, you know, the third attempt would be to have a valve in the side, but then you've got to have a whole new end of the barrel. And so I thought, nah, I better have to start from scratch with a whole new barrel if I'm going to do flame liquor again with a side valve, you know. I got a design for one which was done by a student in university, which looked pretty good. And I have seen them run. And yeah, they've got a sliding side valve and you use a cam, you know. Anyway, I can't do it with this. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have a crack at making an alpha Stirling engine. You know, I've made some gammas, a couple of gammas, and they've gone great, you know. They turned out fantastic, look good, run perfectly. So Stirling and I seem to get on okay. So I thought, okay, let's do an alpha. Now, an alpha is basically 2 pistons sealing in barrels rather than having a displacer like you do with gammas and a sealed piston. You have 2 sealed pistons, you know, so there's no displacer as such. And you have another barrel this side. This is the cold side, and then you have a hot side with, and it comes off of this. It's going to come off of this crank wheel here, which was salvaged from another flame liquor I worked on years ago, which also failed. So this is going to be perfect for this. So I'm reusing that from the old job, and I'm also reusing the piston, which was, I over-engineered. Look, that was way too heavy, and no wonder the damn thing didn't run. There was too much friction. But in those days, I didn't know what I was doing. Or I knew less, anyways, put it that way. So I'll use the piston, but of course this piston is a lot smaller than we've got for the barrel, you know. So I've had to, I mean, this is twice as big almost, so I've had to lengthen the stroke, make a longer stroke for the hot side. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now the interesting thing is, I'm only working on odds and sods, what I've got in the brass tin and, you know, leftovers. And I'll show you what I'm going to use for the hot side. And bearing in mind there'll be no cooling fins on the hot side. So here's what's going on the hot side, and it's still hot because I've just poured some molten aluminium into it. And what I've got is I've got the mounting end, and I've got the end where the cross-feed pipe, because both of the hot and the cold are just fed by a cross-feed pipe. and I've got that drilled and tapped, and this is some brass tubing which I'm going to machine out right down to about 1 mil wall thickness, so it's going to have just enough to do the job. And what I've done is I've pressed this into the housing. This is a press-in fit. I did it with the vise, and I'd say estimate probably 1 to 2 ton pressure pressing it in, so that'll never move. You'd think that would never move, but of course you don't know. Things are going to get hot here. So what I've done, just to make sure that it doesn't move, I've, on the end here, I machined it out bigger, and then the actual brass tube, so there's a cavity, and I've poured molten aluminium in there to lock it in to the steel section. Now I know there'll be some thermal variation, and it's possible that the aluminium may contract away from the brass slightly when it gets hot, but it will certainly lock into the steel. But as the brass has got a rough finish, quite a few dings and dents in it, I'm not worried about that. It's never going to move, because it's just never going to move. You know, it's not a smooth fit to begin with. So now all I have to do is just take this end off, because when I poured it, I put a bolt down the hole of the tube so that I didn't want aluminium going down there. So this should just come off now. Here we go. Whoa, there she is. All right, it's still hot, so I have to dip it in some water before I do any more. So the next step now is to just machine back this mounting section to bring it all level and flush, and then she'll be good to go. Then I'll just make up an angled plate to mount it horizontally, because it's going to be going this way, you know. I'll show you how after I finish it. And yeah, I'll just make up an angle mounting plate, and then drill and tap into the face of this once I've cleaned it up and got the length right, and then I can mount it on the mounting plate. And not a lot more to do, you know. It's just a matter then of, you know, set it up so the piston throw is right. It's going to be a long throw. It's going to look pretty cool if it runs. And then I'll just do the cross tube. So this will go about here, I'd say, and be a long throw con right onto this, and the flame will be out here somewhere, and it's just a 90-degree mount. Pretty straightforward, really. And then we'll have a pipe come out of here, cross here, back into here. So it's just a gallery. That'll be copper or brass. Just make it up out of some old air fittings I've got. And I might put a regenerator in it as well, and I might even have a little filler hole there so I can take a screw out and put a couple of drops of oil down the gallery, so I can lube both the pistons, you know, keep things running free, I hope. So the next job is just now to bore it out, and as you can see, there's not much wall thickness going to be left. There's only going to be about 1 mil, but that'll be enough. It'll be plenty, and it will be good heat transfer. So, you know, provided it all works out okay, shouldn't be an issue. So now I'll put it on the lathe and just face off the end. We'll go and have a look at that next. it standing proud a little bit, because that way it'll just fit into the vertical mounting plate. I might even take this back further. I don't really need it that thick. Yeah, I think I'll take a bit more off. Might as well. That'll cut down some of the thermal loss. We don't want too much heat loss going on. There she be. How good is that, eh? And now it's just a matter of bore it out. So yeah, we've made a perfect seal there. It's totally gas tight, and it's the aluminium's gripping into the rough finish on the outside of this. It's got dings and dents and things in it, and it's also going to expand out as it gets hotter into the steel, and the steel's also got grooves machined into it so that there's no way you're going to get any sort of movement in it. It should work perfectly. And there, that recessed brass tube will fit into the end mounting plate and be slightly recessed. Should give it a good finish. All right, I'll get on with the boring bar work now. As that'll be boring, well, I won't bore you. Okay, that's it from me. See you next time. Cheers.